On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks go down to the Houston Rockets, but they made a comeback. Should we feel good about the comeback? Should we feel good about Luka's shooting slump being over in the second half of this game? We'll talk about all that and more in today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't eat milk.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being an everydayer and making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Subscribe to our free Locked On Mavs newsletter. We're trying to beat every other team. Right now, we're number one, so keep us number one. Check the QR code or click the link in the description to subscribe to our newsletter. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. And joining me from the Great Slightly Biased YouTube channel, the moral victory vixen, the post-game prodigy. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
Interesting game, man. I took about 7 Advil, about 4 Tylenol. I'm waiting for the liver failure any minute now.
It's coming. It's coming. Yeah. Today's episode, we'll get into the Mavs loss to the Houston Rockets. We'll talk about the Mavs going small and playing P.J. Washington at the 5 because the Mavs bigs couldn't really get anything going. That was an interesting look for almost the entire fourth quarter, so we'll get into that. We'll also talk about Kyrie Irving keeping them connected, playing another really good game. We'll talk about Luka's shooting, and maybe is Luka's shooting slump over with that second half? But let's start here slightly. The Mavs went down big in this game. They went down by like 20, and the Houston Rockets were just out hustling them in a bunch of different ways. And specifically, they were getting a ton more offensive rebounds. They finished the game. The Rockets got 18 offensive rebounds. Mavs finished with 10 themselves, but 20 second chance points for the Rockets. It just felt like the Mavs were getting out hustled. They were not playing very well. They're obviously not shooting very well. Luka's shooting in the first half was absolutely dreadful in that first half. And for the Mavericks to come back in this game, like it made me feel actually more encouraged for the Mavs to get back in this game, to get it as close as it was, to be within spitting distance at the end of this game in the fourth quarter. Did you feel as good as I did about this? A moral victory of sorts.
No, this is not a moral victory. This team is well past moral victories, man. This is a team that made the finals a year ago. This is the team that we want and expect to make the finals again. This is the team that we want to finish towards the top of the Western Conference. Toss moral victories to the wayside. Why do I say that? Because you see this fourth quarter run by the Mavericks. You see the way they played in the second half against the Timberwolves. You see the way they played in the second half against the Spurs. Are we catching a trend here? This team is too good and talented to continuously come out this slow at the start of games. And it's one thing to miss shots. You know, they've been horrible from three-point land in the first quarter, first half of games, it feels like. I mean, just terrible. It's one thing to miss shots. You know, that's going to happen. You're going to have cold stretches, whatever. You know, it's another thing to just get, outworked the entire first half of this game the way that the Rockets outworked the Dallas Mavericks. You saw it on the offensive rebound numbers. You saw it in the second chance numbers. And, Şengün had a pretty good game on the glass. I thought the Mavericks did a good job defensively on him, though. But they did a good job. He did a pretty good job on the glass. But a lot of these offensive rebounds were guys on the corner crashing in, guys from the wing crashing in, and the Mavs just not putting a body on them or being a little too slow to get over to those guys. And that's the stuff that's just pretty much inexcusable. I applaud the comeback attempt. I really do. But it makes it that much more frustrating because it's like, okay, yeah, you are this great basketball team that we know you are. Because that's what great basketball teams do. Okay, the Celtics were down by 23 points to the Pacers last night and forced that game in overtime. That's what great teams do. But we've yet to see this team come out and out the gates look like a great basketball team. And it's just they've looked like a great basketball team for small stretches at times this season, but not for any prolonged stretch yet.
It's frustrating to see this team get like this because you see the second half. You see the second half where, okay, now they lock in. Now Luka can shoot all of a sudden. Now the team can defend and can stay in front of guys. And, they get in foul trouble. Now all of a sudden they can defend without fouling. It's like you see what we all see in this team in that second half, and you see in the comeback attempt and all that. But then for them to go down again in that first half, to struggle in a first quarter. I mean, that first quarter, like what they had 21 points. They were close to with Kyrie had 2. Like, didn't Kyrie have 2 late buckets in that first quarter again, like to bail him out from having like a under 20-point quarter. Yeah, Kyrie had a drive bucket with 2:10 left and a pull-up three with 2 minutes left to give him 20 in that quarter, and they didn't score the rest of the way. It was like, is this team really not going to score 20 points in a quarter? They just keep starting so slow on this. And I don't think that the difference is Lively or Gafford in these slow starts, right? Like, if we're just going to go, personnel, I don't think it's just between the two of them.
I mean, do we want to be honest?
You be honest.
Luka's horrible shooting start to the season is responsible, I think, for that. I mean, it's hard to come out the gates when you're star. By the way, this guy has been a first quarter demon his whole career. Like, this is a guy who has led the first quarter in scoring. It feels like every single season of his career. I mean, he comes out, he sets the tone. We're talking 12 points in the first quarter. It feels like you can always bookmark for Luka. Like, that's gonna happen. And so far, it's been super slow. And on top of that, the frustration is really starting to mount for Luka. You can tell.
Yes.
And it's leading to bad shots. It's leading to the foul baiting. There was, again, a stretch, I think it was in the third quarter, where it was 2 or 3 straight possessions of just this foul baiting. And it's like, you're having such a slow start to the season, and then that's what we're putting together. Like, those are the possessions that we're putting out there. Like, that can't happen.
It's frustrating. You look at Luka in first quarter so far through 5 games, 5.8 points a game on 29% from the field, 9% from 3 in the first quarter of games. You go last season, he led the entire NBA with 9.8 points per game in the first quarter, shooting 48%. And so, he's just starting so slow, starting very slow. And it is on Luka. That's the way that they played last year. They had it set up, and maybe they're trying to change some things by running some more stuff for Klay and, running some more things with the bigs and things like that, and trying to create mismatches because they know that all the attention is going to be on Luka and Kyrie. But it is at a certain point on your star player. And we saw that in the second half when the star player plays like the star, shoots like he does, and was awesome in the second half, 7 of 12 from the field in that second half, and hit his threes and was getting buckets to go and was hitting stuff that he had no business hitting, which is what Luka does. That's when you see the team come back and actually be the team that we hoped and expected and dreamed that this team could be. But yeah, there's a bunch of different reasons why they went down in this game, but you kind of it starts with the best player on the team, and it goes back to Luka. Yeah,
and I mean, I don't know if, while we wait for this Luka shooting slump to finally reach its merciful end, I don't know if it's, all right, Kyrie, it's got to be you now. Because I'll give Kyrie a ton of props. I think he's been incredible so far to start this season. Yeah. And you can just feel when he gets downhill and gets going, the offense is quicker and it's faster. And I've never been a proponent of this whole Luka, he takes his teammates out of the offense. That's never been true to me at all, because Luka is so good on offense. He generates so much. He generates so much attention that he's scoring a bunch of points. He's passing the ball a bunch, and it's all just flowing so well. But this is one of the worst stretches of his entire career, if not the absolute worst. And so it's all reaching this really ugly tipping point where it's just we have to figure out, if the shooting slump's not ending anytime soon, or if it doesn't end immediately, we have to figure out early in games, how can we get this offense going? Well, if it's not going to be Luka, it has to be Kyrie or somebody else or something else.
Well, my question to kind of start this is Luka's shooting slump over? We just saw half of him shooting insanely well and hitting really tough shots and getting to his spot, putting the ball in the net. We've seen him hit some really tough shots. He had the shot against the Timberwolves that you called the greatest troll job in the history of the NBA, basically. And then we have this one. So at least we've seen now some signs of life from Luka's jumper.
The fourth quarter was the best he's played all season long in this game.
This one,
you've been saying second half. I mean, the third quarter he was awful as well.
Yeah, good call. Yeah,
but fourth quarter, 15 points, 6 of 8, 3 of 4 from 3.
Third quarter is 1 of 4.
yeah. It was the fourth quarter. I mean, the Mavericks were down 23 with 2 minutes left in the third. Just to give context to this comeback and genuinely how impressive it was. But yeah, the fourth quarter was the best we've seen Luka look this season. Hopefully, it's a sign of things to come, because it was just letting the game come to him. The shots, even the step back threes, which I don't mind. It's just there's certain 3-point attempts that are head scratching when he's in a shooting slump, but I don't mind when he has space on a big or something. He shoots a step back three and misses. That's okay. We live with him shooting those.
He also had a wild catch and shoot 3.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Well, at the beginning of the fourth quarter, 10 minutes and 10 seconds, Hardy drives, kicks to Luka, just had to throw it up because the shot clock will sit down, but just a wild, and you're like, of course he makes that shot. The shot that we never expect him to make is the catch and shoot shot. But in this game, you decide. You listening get to decide. If you're a glass half empty, glass half full. If you're glass half empty, you look at this game and go, they should never have been down in this game. They should have put up the effort. They should have been in this game. You saw in the second half how they can keep with this team and how they could beat this team. The Rockets really never had anybody like really beat them until Jalen Green started to go off late. But they never had a go-to scorer that really scared you. And so that's why in the fourth quarter they struggled so much and only scored 20 points. If you're a glass half empty or if you're a glass half full type person, you can look at that second half and go, you know what? That's the actual team. That's the actual Mavericks, the team that beat the Timberwolves, the team that we've seen go to the NBA Finals last year, the team that got better because of the additions that they made. So you get to decide. It's up to you. Coming up, let's get into some of the reasons why the Mavs went down. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Kyrie and how the Mavs made a comeback. We'll get into that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds you can use to get in on the action. Check out FanDuel and see what is available for you. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your bets on the NFL all in one place, also the NBA. So check it out and see if you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out latest stats, play-by-play, all kinds of stuff at FanDuel.com. See what is available for you. They've got all kinds of different things as well. You can do the parlay builder, the NBA Finals odds. Mavs still worse odds than the Timberwolves. This is surprising to me. Timberwolves plus 1,000, Mavericks plus 1,100 to get to the NBA Finals, to win the NBA Finals, I guess. So interested in that one, why the Mavericks have less odds than the Timberwolves, even though they just beat them in 5 games, beat them again recently. Check out FanDuel, place that $5 bet, and if you win, you get $150 in bonus bets, FanDuel.com.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Thanks, everybody I saw tonight at the game, and shout out to all the great costumes I saw. There was an amazing amount of costumes here in the AAC. I saw a Doodle Bob from SpongeBob. That was great. There's a guy dressed as just a strip of bacon, which was awesome. I saw a listener that was dressed up as Katara from Avatar, one of my favorite shows.
Oh, nice.
I saw a bunch of different great costumes. There's a Buzz and a Woody. There was a 6'5" Homelander that was actually kind of scared me. It was a buff dude. He got put in one of the games.
You need him on the glass tonight.
Yeah, really, we could have used him. Get out there. Yeah, really great costumes here at the AAC. All right.
They had a funny one on the broadcast of the little halftime show that they had. There was a guy in a Luka jersey. I think he had the Luka haircut. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. They got a Luka doppelganger out on the court.
We should get fake Klay, fake Luka.
Yeah.
We should get that. Have you seen that meme of PJ, like the fake PJ in the club? Like
Yes.
we should get that guy.
I've seen the fake PJ meme. We don't talk about those on this.
We don't need to talk about the fake PJ because he's been really good. We'll talk about him
True.
in a little bit here, but let's talk about how the Mavs went down and how they actually made a comeback. So the reason why the Mavs went down in this game, to me, it wasn't even like the go-to scorer. There wasn't like one guy just torching the Mavericks from the Rockets. It was the fifth man, it felt like to me. It was every cut, every time the Mavericks tried to rotate, the fifth guy would beat the Mavericks rotation and just get a layup, get a bucket. And that's one of the reasons why the Mavs struggled with fouling so much, I thought, is because they were trying to play catch up on a lot of these plays. The Rockets have a bunch of athletes. They have a bunch of really quick dudes, and the Mavs just couldn't keep up with them at certain points. And the Mavs bigs got in foul trouble, which took them out of the game. We got Dwight Powell sighting in this game earlier that we'll talk about. But yeah, the Mavs just really got taken out of what they do, and the Rockets out hustled them.
Yeah, and I think so you said earlier glass half full, glass half empty. I guess technically speaking, I'm glass half empty, but I'm not. This isn't like shaping up my long-term outlook of this team at all. I'm just saying that these slow starts can't continue, and I'm not walking away from this like, well, at least they came back in the fourth quarter. I'm more walking away from it like, stop coming out in the first half like this. But if I were to take a long-term
you're not mad, you're not mad, you're disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. But if we were to do like a last season or 2022 thing where every game is a referendum on the entire season and we have to make huge sweeping statements after every game, I would say the Rockets are a young team with a lot of good athletes, and you could tell how that gave this Mavericks team quite a bit of trouble early on, staying in front of guys and those guys crashing and then cuts, like you said. And that could be something that's of a little bit of concern moving forward. I thought they did a really good job on Ant in that game against the Timberwolves, obviously one of the best athletes in the league. So, I think a lot of it was just attention to detail early on, was not really where it needed to be, especially for a team that is lacking in the athleticism department. You have to really be on your P's and Q's against a team like this, and they weren't early on. But when they needed to in the fourth quarter, they ramped up that level by
Man,
a bunch. I mean, even
they did.
the shots that the Rockets made down the stretch were tough buckets that you just have to shake their hand and live with. So, you know,
I mean,
you got to give the Rockets some props. They came out the gates playing really, really good basketball.
They did. They came out swinging. They came out and took advantage of the Mavericks' slow start, 34-21 in the first quarter, and then they tied in the second, and they took that lead through the third quarter, basically. I also think Şengün gave them real problems. Like, Şengün didn't look like he had a great game, 17 points, 12 rebounds on 5 of 16 shooting. But Şengün, how many times did the Mavs foul Şengün? And yes, some of it is because he flopped like a fish out of water a lot and just like kept trying to get foul calls and kept getting them, and the Mavs weren't allowed to touch him basically. But I think he did do a good job of getting in position a lot of time, and he drew a lot of fouls too on the Mavs.
He's a difficult one. If people call him Baby Jokic, no. He's
not that
through and through. He is Baby Sabonis. He is a difficult viewing experience for me. He just is. He flops a lot. He complains a lot. Good basketball player, but it's a difficult viewing experience at times. It just is.
He was challenging Luka for the most complaints per minute or most complaints per call.
Yeah, he was getting up there.
him, Luka, and Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks got a tech like within the first 3 minutes of the game, 2 minutes of the game.
What was he mad about? I did not understand. There was 3 plays in the game.
That play was right in front of me here, and I still have no idea what it was about. But the Mavs bigs really got out of this game, and I mentioned we saw the Dwight. We got a Dwight Powell sighting at the end of the second quarter. It was because the Mavs bigs were in foul trouble, and Kidd was like, "All right, we got to go to something." And he also, I think, wanted to muck up this game in a way because the Mavs were trying to play physical. It felt a lot like the Suns game where the Mavs tried to play physical. The refs were calling a bunch of touch fouls, and so the Mavs were like, "All right, now we can't play physical." But then the Rockets would come and play physical, and then they would get fouls for themselves. And there was fouls all over this game. Free throws ended up being pretty decent, not terrible discrepancy there. But he threw in Dwight Powell, and Dwight Powell does Dwight Powell things. He's the arm hooker champion. Like, he is one of the greatest arm hookers ever, where he just goes in, hooks somebody, and then he got 2 fouls immediately, one on Şengün and I think one on, was it Van Vliet or something? Like, got two fouls immediately after he checked in. He got Luka a floater right at the rim because he rescreened in the paint. That was a nice move. And then got another foul where he went to the free throw line. Like, he made a little impact when he went in, and it was just because Kidd needed to turn to something real quick.
No, I thought Kidd actually coached a pretty good basketball game here tonight. I thought that decision was a great one to sub in Dwight Powell because, your bigs were in foul trouble, but they were also not playing well. And you know what Dwight Powell is going to give you, and that's energy. And I think in that moment, you desperately needed somebody out there who was just going to bring 110% energy just to get the rest of the team going. So I thought that was actually a really good sub for the Mavs. And they kind of continued that in the fourth quarter where they just went small completely.
They did completely. They went with PJ at the 5. But the Mavs were down. They couldn't really. It didn't seem like they could get anything going. The only thing I thought that was positive for the Mavs in the first half of this game was Kyrie. Kyrie had 11 points on 4 of 7, and he kept them connected a lot. He brought speed and intentionality to the offense. You mentioned the speed earlier, and man, he really is just been really great to start this season. 28 points. He had 8 rebounds, 7 assists in this game, 5 of 6 from 3. Like, just really good. Kept the Mavs connected this whole game, basically.
Yeah, no, Kyrie, I thought, played a great basketball game. He's had a really good start to the season, and he deserves a lot of credit because, we've seen this at times with Kyrie where the Mavs struggle a little bit offensively, but he's doing enough just to keep them connected and just waiting for the rest of the guys and Luka to get going. And we saw that again tonight. So, again, as I said at the top of the show, monitor this Luka situation because I don't know at what point you have to say, all right, we're usually a team where the first quarter Luka carries us, Kyrie fills out the game, and then he gets going. But if this shooting slump continues and, the West is going to be a dogfight, man. You need to win games. I know it's early in the season.
And against West opponents, Suns and Rockets, 2 losses.
You look at keep in mind here, we're coming off a finals run, and we spent the whole preseason talking about this team like they are one of the top tier contenders. Anytime we would hint at, maybe not, you guys would massacre us for even suggesting that. So
don't talk about the Thunder anymore.
Keep in mind here, we're talking about this team at that level. Those teams have unbelievably high winning percentages at home. So especially a Western Conference team, a team that we're 7.5 point favorites in this game. at home, you have to win these games. You just do. So you need to figure out some stuff here. And if Luka's struggle continues, I think you have to maybe look at Kyrie coming out the gate swinging a little bit more.
I keep looking at the offensive rebound number. The Rockets offensive rebounded 41.7% of their misses, basically. That's in the 96th percentile, which is just an absolutely insane number on that. What do you attribute that to? To me, because a lot of it was even happening while the Mavs bigs were in.
So I think a lot of it is, I mentioned earlier, the Rockets athletes kind of got to the Mavs a bunch, beat guys off the dribble pretty easily. That put the Mavs defense in rotation pretty quickly, and that kind of throws off stuff. When your defense is rotating, it's a little bit more difficult to get on the boards. But also, I mean, a lot of it is attention to detail, man. This team can be so frustrating with that. It just, again, I come back to this because this is the expectations we're putting on this team now. If you want to be this top upper echelon team, you have to weed out games like these. You just do, and starts like these. You have to come ready to play. Attention to detail has to be on point every single game. And you just can't allow guys from the corners and from the wings to crash in that hard on the glass.
That was it. Yeah, to me, it wasn't on the bigs. To me, it was on the guys on the corners. It was on the
it wasn't on the bigs. I really don't think it was.
It was on the guards and the wings to check their man, to everybody, gang rebound and all that. And usually the Mavs are like, they're okay with, all right, Luka will get this rebound or a big will get this rebound. So they just kind of let it, just let it happen and expect one of those guys to get it. And the Rockets were taking a bunch of. I thought they were taking a bunch of jumpers. They took 34 threes, so not a ton. They missed a bunch of them, and so those are long rebounds on there. Yeah. And so the Rockets got a lot of those as well for offensive rebounds. But man, they really struggled in that area. That was something that they really struggled with between Luka's shooting in the first three quarters really, and then the offensive rebounds, the fouling for the Mavericks, the getting out of their normal play. That was what put the Mavericks down, and then they ended up coming back because they went to PJ at the 5, and they decided to play this lineup we haven't seen. So coming up, let's get into PJ at the 5. Let's get into what we saw there in the fourth quarter. Some signs of life. Let's talk about some good things. We'll talk about all that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA. You can go to all kinds of things. Concerts, comedy, theater. You can use GameTime to go to all that. They have the GameTime picks, so the curation is a lot easier so that you can see a bunch of different things that are happening around you. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Not for me, but maybe for you. $58. That doesn't seem bad. Texans at the Cowboys. You can go see that one. And that one right now, $32. You can go see that on GameTime. See what else is available. Baylor football, Dallas Stars, TCU men's basketball. There's so many things. We're in the sports equinox right now. Actually, baseball's over, but there's so many things going on right now. A Linkin Park concert, a Pink concert, Mary J. Blige, Justin Timberlake. They let him out of jail. Go check, see what is available for you on GameTime. Use that app. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Slightly, let's talk about the rest of this game. The Mavs did come back. We've been way down on the Mavericks, but they did make a comeback that I actually feel pretty good about. At least we saw a sign that this team didn't completely fold and fall over and hang their head because their shots weren't falling and all that kind of stuff. So they did come back. And I think it kind of kickstarted when PJ went to the 5. The Mavericks ended up going small to start the fourth quarter. Luka, Kyrie, Jaden Hardy, Naji Marshall, PJ Washington started. Kyrie then got a 3. The Mavs got a stop. Naji hit Luka in transition. And then the Mavs it was kind of like swung momentum in the stadium, it felt like. It was 77-88. They were only down 11 at that point. Houston calls a timeout. And I want to point this out because I think sometimes the Mavs don't there's not really a home court advantage. Sometimes you feel we won't talk about it the same way that we talk about a Utah or a Denver. But I thought the Mavs game offs specifically. I'll shout out my boy Shippy. He played swag surfing coming out of that, and it was like the greatest hype up. The greatest hype up moment that could ever happen coming out of that timeout where the Mavs started to get momentum back. And I really thought it carried the Mavs through that timeout, into the play. I really think that mattered in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting little look spin at it. I think the small ball gave them some energy, and I think PJ really deserves.
Also true.
I honestly, God, I think PJ deserves pretty much all the credit for that comeback. I really think his energy and his effort level, combined with Naji, who's going to give you 110% every time. I think Naji kind of unlocks that small ball group if that's what they're looking to do moving forward. Just because he's somebody who can play up a little bit and be the 4, and then also just he provides some great energy. And I thought his energy in the fourth quarter was great, but that was encouraging. Now, I will say, I'm leaving thinking this small ball group absolutely could be competitive.
You know, it'd be great. You know, it'd be really great about the small ball. You know, I kept watching PJ just grab rebounds and tip rebounds and get stops at the rim, and I was like, you know, it'd be really awesome for this small ball unit if Omax was ready. Like if Omax could play like that size, another 6'8" guy out there with long wingspan. Like it feels like they need one more longer wing like that to make this lineup work. And Naji Marshall came in and played decent, but he's just not got that same size. But the lineup we saw tonight, we saw them. Yeah, they were able to space the floor. You're able to go 5 out. We've seen Kid do this a couple times this year where they just really need the spacing, really need the extra shooter on the floor. And PJ unlocked it all because he was able to guard Şengün like one-on-one. He was probably the best guy guarding Şengün all night.
Yeah, PJ. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think Şengün's one of these guys, and PJ guarded Wemby quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
He's one of these guys where, you know, he's a crafty, big, good footwork, strong guy. There's some centers that he can bully around quite a bit. And PJ's just this stout defender who you're not going to back down easily. And it's one of those matchups for him where the Mavs can go small in a matchup like this. And I think it does work out quite well. So, yeah.
You're going through that fourth quarter, and Luka gets his 5th foul with 9:22 left on a Şengün rebound, which is another Şengün moment right there. Then this moment I thought was huge. Speaking of PJ Washington gets the stop on Şengün. They both go to the ground. They start going for the ball. PJ obviously has possession of the ball. They don't call a foul though. They call a jump ball, of course. And then a huge, like maybe one of the loudest I've heard since the playoffs, refs you suck chant. Like just a huge chant in the arena from everybody. And I thought that moment really gave the Mavericks some more juice too. And this crowd really like feeds off of those hustle plays, and PJ just gets those. And that was another moment where I thought the momentum and all the energy all kind of went towards the Mavs.
Yeah, I mean, they played a great fourth quarter basketball, and we can leave feeling good about that. And PJ's played a great 5 games of basketball. I mean, he's been really good. His energy's been incredible. His defense has been really, really good. All of the things that you want to see PJ Washington do, he's done outside of hitting threes up until this point. And, he's 25% from 3 so far this season. If we can get that to like the mid-30s, on top of everything else PJ is providing, that's a very, very good basketball player to have for this group. So
invaluable. Every championship team has a guy like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Everyone. Do you want to go through and second guess all the decisions made in the last 5 minutes?
No, not necessarily. I just think the Rockets hit some tough shots down the stretch. They just have to shake their hand.
They did. You got Jalen Green on it. So you come out, Dallas gets a stop. They call timeout. And it's 94-98. So you're like, all right. And the momentum all feels like it's going towards the Mavs. The Rockets come out with no Şengün, too. There's 3:31 left in the game. Mavs are back with their small unit again. Klay is in for Hardy. And Jalen Green gets a finish on PJ Washington. Klay misses a 3. But then Dallas forces a shot clock. Luka gets a step back. It's 97-100. Then Houston gets an offensive rebound. Jalen hits a 3, and then Luka hits a 3, and then Amen Thompson hits a wild fadeaway that I never would have expected him to get. Oh my God, that was a brutal shot.
Yeah, tough shot. Again, that's just one of those you shake their hands and move on. And even that offensive rebound, we talk a lot about offensive rebound and effort. That one was just an unfortunate bounce.
Yeah.
Klay made a good effort on it, and it's just one of those tough ones that you lose out on from time to time. So that one wasn't one of the offensive rebounds lost due to lack of effort that we were talking about towards the start.
30 minutes for Klay, 12 points, 2 of 9 from 3. Thought he rushed some stuff, but we also saw him and Lively get going in the pick and roll a little bit, or him and Gafford. Can't remember who was in at the time. And I thought that was good when the Mavs needed to get some offense going. What did you see from Klay?
Yeah, and if Luka's going to continue to struggle, I think they need to run some more stuff for Klay early. Like, they just need to get him going. And really, I just think anybody who can take some of the load off of Luka early in games would help out tremendously, because the whole Luka will carry us to the first quarter has not worked to the first 5 games of the season.
5 points is not going to do it?
No, and it really just might make Luka's life easier if he doesn't have to do that to start these games. So we've seen it, though. The Timberwolves made an effort last game to sort of take this Klay valve away. They had Dylan Brooks on Klay for a lot of this game. So teams are like starting to hone in on the Klay thing, and even putting some of their better defenders on Klay in an effort to take away some of these threes. That's going to open up so many things for this offense once they fully get going. So even in games where Klay's not knocking down threes, and he had some clutch ones in this game,
Man,
but even in games where he's not, he's going to help out a lot.
That Klay missed 3 though with like 2:42 left. That would have changed the momentum completely. That would have been so big on this one. We saw Hardy for 11 minutes. We saw Grimes for 10 minutes. Dinwiddie for 12 minutes. Didn't see a ton from those guys. Well, I guess what else from Naji Marshall, because we mentioned him a couple times. 21 minutes, hit a couple of shots, 3 assists. I think he's kind of finding his role here a little bit. He's a lockdown defender that can get out in transition. They always look to be giving him the ball in transition.
Yeah, that was a big thing I noticed whenever I went and looked at Naji stuff, was his playmaking in transition. And, we talked about it. The Pelicans used him as a secondary ball handler and the lead ball handler off the bench at times. So that's something that's in his skill set. And man, I've really liked Naji's minutes. I don't think Mavs fans are kind of frustrated with the scoring stuff from him and the shooting stuff. That's not what you bring him in to do.
No.
I mean, it's not. We told you that in the offseason. You bring him in for his energy, his defense, his playmaking, all the other connective stuff that he does. And I think he's done good at it so far. And he's going to have games where he hits threes and it looks really, really good. So I've been happy with him.
There you go. Let us know what you thought about this game on YouTube in the comment section. Check the QR code or the links in the description of this show for different ways to subscribe to the newsletter, get text straight to your phone on the Mavs, Locked On Mavs Insiders program, all kinds of stuff. Go check out Slightly Biased YouTube channel. Great stuff all the time, the NBA and Dallas Mavericks stuff. So go check that out. We'll be back with more. Isaac should have one more thing later. We'll have some more on the Mavs. Bunch of games next week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Boom!
Moral victories is for minor league coaches.